Well, welcome everybody to Forever Bristol City podcast. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Last night we had a double whammy of an appalling performance on the pitch, which was preceded, I'll call it, as a pretty abysmal interview with our owner. If you're a fan of this club and you want to be positive about the future, everything's fine. Everything's fine. The takeaway, we're happy with recruitment and we're a spending club, but there's loads of comments to talk about there. And I think maybe when we had a chance to dissect the interview, it might be worthy, in the wake of the window shutting, of a special podcast next week. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ant Banks and Dave Tubby, and with me, the Suttons, Neil and Tom. We'll break this down into two sections. We'll talk about the game, and then we will talk about the Lansdown interview. There's a QR code going to be appearing where if you want to have your say in addition to the chat, we got facility to let you in from 9:45. Okay, so we're going to do the game first, and then we'll talk about the Lansdown interview. Look, as I always do in these situations, everybody who's here, because there's a crowd of us, there's four of you, brief 30-second analysis on how you felt trudging away from Ashton. Neil and I stayed until the end, just about. You know, a lot of people went on the 55th minute. But you first, Tom, what were your immediate thoughts as you trudged back to the car?
Whimsical at just how bad that was. I wasn't actually angry walking away from the ground. I've only woken up angry. But it was absolutely hopeless yesterday. On and off the pitch, I think from start to that day with the M5 closed and then Steve Lansdown and then Borges and Sinclair Armstrong are late to the ground. Struber's there blaming traffic for kickoff. Hopeless start, conceding early, really poor goals. And then you only have to look at social media afterwards to gather the atmosphere around the club at the minute. And that was a team that had a night and 7th to play.
Yeah, and could have gone sick. Okay, and your thoughts on the final whistle?
Car crashes everywhere. Issues in the way in, issues on the ownership, issues at the ground. We could literally complain and moan about everything, and to be fair, there is blame that goes on Struber for last night, which we can talk about in terms of the selection setup, etc. But the overarching thing for me is yesterday felt like the day that the Lansdowns were seen to be naked. And if any good comes of yesterday, then I hope that that's it. They finally see that they can't keep running things the way they're running things, because that was just a symptom. That wasn't the reason for the Malars, and we know the reason for the Malars, and it goes to the top.
Yeah. Neil?
A really, really strange night, wasn't it? That interview, I thought fair play to Steve Lansdown for coming out and doing the interview on the back of the Sheffield Wednesday boos and such like. I likened it to earlier, didn't I? Prince Andrew Epstein interview. What? He thought he could go out there.
Well, the interview with Emily Maitlis.
Yeah. He thought he could go in there and actually pretty much tell us, well, we were completely wrong, and listen to him. He's completely right. We then witnessed something on the pitch that I don't think anybody has seen in living recent memory. The ineptness of that performance meant that there were thousands streaming out at half time. By 65 minutes and the fourth goal going in, 3/4 of the stadium had left. By the 80th minute, I took some photos that I shared on social media. Dolman must have had 1,000 people in it. By the end of the game, when we walked out through the concourses, completely empty, people just walked away last night. And in some ways, that was worse than booze.
Yeah.
The fact that people gave up on that team last night and gave up on it, and you've seen the level of anger on social media last night in relation to that.
Yeah, I think the people exiting, a lot of that was I'd say a fair percentage of those heard the Lansdown interview beforehand or had spoken to people that had heard it, and they thought, sod this for a game of soldiers, why should we care? Dave's doing the producer's job today. You'll notice all these little banners going and texts and things coming up, and we don't want to lose your erudite input, Dave. And I said, don't put your rant on OTIB with the link to this episode, post it elsewhere, and you saved it for today. But yeah, what were your immediate thoughts at 10 o'clock nearly, wasn't it, when you sat there watching it on your screen in Dusseldorf?
11 o'clock for me, First of all, Derby played with purpose, precision, and they were very much a dog that refused to let go of the bone. And they were successful because they understood our weaknesses and they raged at them and they didn't stop. But the point for me is, why were we so soft under the hood? We had one fit centre back. Pring is okay in a 3, but not in that 3 with Tanner as well. That leaves too much pressure on Dickie and it just doesn't work. We are Anis-less. Those goals and assists have disappeared. If you factor in Viner and Anis, that's 2 of our 4 players of the season just gone. We had Bell as a 10, who's earned the right to start, by the way, but that says more about others than it does about him. But he was deemed surplus to requirements 6 months ago. We said we needed a multi-positional forward. Well, if Murphy replaces Stokes, that means Herzog replaces Anis. So we're still a striker short. We're missing. We've got an owner who's the master in gaslighting, basically blaming a fan base for his wasted January. It's all wrong across everything. I really believe that the board and those who make decisions should write a book in the masterful art of destroying a season in 30 days, because it would be better than the way they're running this football club. And that's before we even get to some of Struber's baffling decisions and some of the worst performances from players that have the honour of wearing that shirt. It was a poor day all round, but context is everything for me here.
Yeah, no. I mean, you summed that up very well. I think the thing about players going out, because who's gone out, is Mehmeti, Stokes, you, and Viner. Yeah, and I did a weighted average in terms of how you sort of assess the impact of those, and those 4 have gone, and they've been replaced by Herzog. Yeah, who's the other one who's come in? Herzog and Earth, who can't even get into the team, doesn't even get minutes on the pitch. And then we've got Mr. Naylor. The side, we brought players in, but players have gone out. The team is weaker than it was on the 1st of January. And here we are with the window only still open because the 1st of February falls on a weekend. Tom, and try and keep everybody a little bit brief because there's a lot to get through on today. Just your thoughts on the lineup. Dave's alluded to it with the 3 centre-backs. Was there a call for a formation? Why are we playing a left-footed right back when we've got a specialist in terms of Boris? Or was he still putting his boots on and therefore couldn't make it on the pitch?
I don't know whether they play. I doubt that, because line-up to decided beforehand, it didn't sound like Borges was starting anyway. But the back 3 yesterday lacked so much physicality and pace. I mean, Pring was so far off it against Adjaman that I've never seen such a mismatch battle. And then Tanner for I think it was the 4th goal, it was just hopeless. Physically, we were absolutely nowhere near competing with their front 4 yesterday. Attacking wise, that is what we have. That Reece is going to start because he's your top earner, and Scott Twine is always going to start
because he's your other top earner.
Because he's up there, isn't he? And you paid such a transfer fee for him, and he sticks with Knight and Vandal, even though it's not worked for the last month.
Yeah.
So for me, it sort of picked itself, but I didn't particularly like it on paper, and it didn't work out in practicality at all.
Okay, and the lineup as you saw it.
I probably slightly disagree with Thomas. I think probably Borges and Armstrong may have been in the starting lineup, and I think you've got, as you rightly say, you've got to submit the lineup an hour and a quarter early, and I don't think they're over the ground at that point. You probably name them on the bench because you don't know if they're going to turn up because of the traffic. That doesn't excuse the way we played, but I wonder whether Borges would have started, particularly. I don't think it would have made that much different, but the fact those are the 2 subs at half-time possibly indicates that they may have been the starting lineup. In terms of the starting lineup itself, I agree with what's been said about physicality. The bigger thing for me, though, was in terms of that defence. If I look at the 3 at the back, George Tanner is a very, very good right back, but cannot play the ball out from the back progressively forwards at all. Rob Dickie now needs half an hour to play a forward pass. It's slow, it's ponderous, and he's got the turning circle of the QE2 at the present time. Cam Pring, he's not really played in the centre of that for a while, and he was absolutely god-awful. That was probably the worst game I've seen Cam Pring have. But what that does in that back 3, and it was writ large in the second goal, is that if you're trying to play the ball out from the back, and that was Jason Knight under a bit of pressure there as well, is you've got 3 defenders who aren't going to progress you up the pitch. And you know you're playing against a high-pressing Derby side. So why in the bluest of blue hells do you start trying to knock the ball out from the back or set up that way? It may be a bit of what we have, but I'm all about pegs and holes. You don't put some very square pegs in some very round holes in that formation. And for all that Lansdown is at fault here, and he absolutely is, there are questions to be asked over Struber in that starting formation, because that should not have happened because the resource was not there for it.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Neil, your thoughts on the lineup?
I think everybody, you had the players on the pitch. They have played well in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got the most clean sheets in the division. I think ultimately we've had as many clean sheets as the entirety of last season. You know, defensively we've looked all right at times, but last night it was a step too far, wasn't it? There were players there last night. There's something. Who knows? We go to Hull next week and maybe we see a better performance, but there is something behind the scenes. That was a team on that pitch last night where they looked unsettled.
Yeah.
They looked unsettled. And if he's saying they're unsettled because of Borges and Armstrong and they might say whatever.
No.
But last night, there was a team there that there was an uncertainty about, like they hadn't played together. And there wasn't 3, 4, 5 different players in there that hadn't played together. There was a team that had played together throughout the course of the season. And your normal mainstays, your Dickies, your Randalls, really poor games in relation to it. McCrory, Sykes, you know, the substitutions that he makes as well.
Well, we come on to those in a minute. Dave, you know, you look at the team, and we talk about players coming in that have got to be better than what we got. 3 of our signings, Earthy, Naylor, the kid from Man City, and Burzorg, the much heralded Delano Burzorg, they start on the bench, you know. So what was that all about? And this business about players being late, I always thought they came down to the ground together. Was Sinclair Armstrong coming in from Longwell Green and Borges coming up the M4 from Western? I mean, there's 2 things there, you know, the playing your best players that are meant to add value, and the pre-match organisation that the players, you know, I thought they came from the training ground down to the ground, and surely everybody was aware that there was this traffic problem because it had been going since midday, and they were right at the hub of it, if you like, up at Beggarbush Lane, in terms of knowing how bad the problems were. Bad organisation, isn't it?
Well, Bristol's not exactly known for its free-flowing traffic, and I appreciate life changes with, you know, things like, you know, working from home and the brave new world that we live in. But I can certainly remember the insanity of Bristol traffic and what it used to do to me. And yesterday was an example of the worst-case scenario. You know, when motorway has issues, when bridges have problems for various different reasons. The fact is that if some of your players get there, you should all be able to get there. It comes down to a lack of planning in that respect. And in terms of the side itself, Earthy, the fact is, he's been okay in a couple of games. I felt Bell was okay with the start. I looked at the side, it was more or less the side I expected him to play with, those 3 at the back. I didn't particularly like that 3, but it wasn't like I saw the side to begin with and thought, no, this is the wrong side. It was kind of the obvious side to play yesterday. And boy, did he get punished. And there are so many reasons behind what went wrong, but I can't sit here and say that I was surprised and shocked by the 11 he chose. More or less, it was what I expected.
Yeah. No, very depressing. I mean, what gets me is Derby County 3 years ago, they were on the verge of going bust, right? They were in the proverbial, you know, like, oh, we don't want to be like Derby County. Yet there they are, parading a £7 million forward in Aguiman, experienced strikers in Brereton and Diaz, and the other guy up front alongside him, Ryan Brewster. Yep, those players like that. Player on loan, I think it was Clark on loan from Liverpool, exploiting Salzburg, is it? So somebody that probably Struber would know then.
From Liverpool to Salzburg.
Right, and they've got him on loan from Salzburg? Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clark, yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's a player that we might have known about. But anyway, those players there, but this is a club that have got a manager that should never have been fired by Birmingham City either. But they've gone out. They had a forward line that we could dream of. Now they get bigger attendances than us, but less than 3 years ago, they were in the financial shit, totally and utterly. Yet they've got an owner that has sorted everything out and they're moving forward. We're not doing that. And less said about Hull, the better. I mean, they've been signing players like it's bloody Christmas, yeah? Loan players and goodness knows what else. And they've got a transfer embargo on. It's just a bloody joke. But again, we want to focus on the game for a little while longer. Who should I come to first? For the first goal, I won't go to each of you for each goal because there's 5 to get across there. You first, Tom. The first goal, Brewster. It started with us losing. We had acres of space on that left-hand flank, didn't we? But take us through the first goal.
Cam Pring for the first goal. I think it was a pretty horrific clearance.
That's right.
On his right foot, hooked into nowhere, into no man's land. I mean, he was completely flustered first half. That's why Struber had to move him to left wing back, because he had to bring Borges on to slot in at left centre back because it was such a mismatch. Doesn't get back in for the cross. We don't shut down the cross. It is really basic, and that's within 5 minutes. And you're like, you want to start the game well, you want to impose yourself, but I think our heads weren't even in the game. It looked like we were thinking about whether Viner's situation, Rometti's situation, the interview beforehand, wherever it was, we weren't in the game and Derby were, and they were straight on it. And the ball came in, and Dickey and Pring, there's no communication, and it's completely free header, and Vitek really can't do anything. I mean, he could have done something about the other goals later in the game, but for this one, Vitek couldn't have done anything, and it's such a poor start. And at that point, given what had happened before kickoff, it felt like, oh my God, this could go only one way tonight, and it did. Yeah,
that first goal and shape of things to come, really, wasn't it? Because I've read comments on social media that people have worked out how to play us with the format that Struber adopts. But defensively, we talk about atrocious goals when we let them in, and this one was, in fact, all 5 were tonight. But the first one, as you saw it, Anne.
The first one, I'm not a huge amount to add. It is an absolutely abysmal clearance. Bruce just goes into the space between Dickey and Pring, and I think there's 4 defenders in there, and you've got a man who's completely free. His movement wasn't top notch. His movement was just expected movement from a striker, but nobody seemed to want to pick it up. And it's worrying because we didn't seem to be coming on the pitch with any kind of intent. We didn't seem to be saying it's in the moment. I didn't make it down to the game last night because of the traffic incident. So I was a Sky viewer last night. And one of the interesting things that they said on Sky, which people at the game may have missed, was that said Struber had to justify the sale of Mehmeti to the dressing room. Now, there's a bit of me that says there, if the head coach is having to sit there and talk his players through, this is why we're selling players, lads, when we're on the verge of the playoffs. And by the way, look what's coming in the door. Nothing that seems any great shakes in the context of this is going to push you over the line. I'm not saying there's ever an excuse to down tools, but you can understand why a group of players
That's interesting.
Aren't at it.
That's interesting, that point you make, Anne, because I heard somebody reference it on Sky. So exactly what Sky said, because this business about the Sky commentators who are out of touch and they pick up a comment out of context without knowing the detail behind it. But can you just repeat that again? What Sky said?
The Sky comment was to the extent, and this may not be word for word, that Struber had to explain to the dressing room the logistics behind selling Mehmeti. Now, actually, I don't have a problem in the head coach justifying decisions for sales. I think it's absolutely fine. And I think I said a couple of weeks ago that actually I understood the outgoings on one side of the ledger. The incomings on the other side of the ledger is the problem, because footballers understand that players move on. They know they're not going to be there forever. They want the best players. They want to be ambitious. But if you sat there and say, lads, we're going to sell our top scorer and our top assister, debate, discuss in terms of what his level is ultimately. And by the way, we're also likely to sell our best defender. Who's coming in? Oh, a kid who's never played a game for Man City. He may be great. George Urphy, yeah, he's all right. Sam Morsey's been over in Kuwait and has been indifferent, to say the least. And Bergsorg, who we've tried 3 times and can't get in Middlesbrough's team. That's not slating the individual players. If you're a player in that dressing room, what are you going to be thinking? Are we going to have a go at this or not? Well, no, we're not. And if I'm Jason Knight, But as bad as he played last night, I'm sat and I'm thinking, I'm out of contract in 2027. Summer this year, I've got to make a decision to sell or renew. Why would I bother saying if we're not going to go for it when we're in this position, when we've just had 14 million quid from Semenyo, etc. They didn't need to hear the owner's interview. They knew everything that was happening at this club, from the bodies that are coming in and the bodies that are coming out. They aren't stupid, and they didn't. I'm not saying they're down tools, but you can absolutely see why you can motivate that group at the moment, why things have changed.
Yeah. Dave, that down tools, we heard that the other week, didn't we, as a term, the players of down tools. And I mean, why should the manager, why should the coach, manager, call him what you will, have to sell players leaving? Because, you know, is he doing the same with Zach Viner? You don't have to sell it. You say neither of them want to sign contracts. You know, we don't want to pay them. We don't want to pay them any more than what they've been offered by their new suitor clubs.
First of all, the down tools, I'm just not having it. I don't see it. There's a difference between not playing and playing poorly. And some of it is cause and effect. How often do people, we do it on this podcast and other places, we spoke about Anis's decision making. Well, it turns out that when you remove the main decision maker and you start to ask other players to do it, they've got to step up. And people are saying, I don't remember Jason Knight giving away the ball. Well, yesterday he was trying to make passes he hasn't been doing for a while. The spotlight was so much more on other players, and yesterday they fell short. And the issue comes as a dressing room, you're watching who's going out the door. As I said at the beginning, 2 of the 4 players in Player of the Year running will not play again for Bristol City. And that's in January in a promotion push. And you wonder why that has an effect on the team. If you take away the best pieces, what you're going to do? You know, it's not a surprise in what you see. And when you're putting things together in that way, you think, my goodness, what's happening here? And that first 10 minutes of the game, we were in it. We were bright. We were probing, but so were Derby. And Derby knew, just stay at it, and we will fold. And as soon as they got that first goal, which was a poor goal to concede, they come down the side, a really probing run, aggressive run, cross comes in, poor clearance from Pring. Not the first time we've said poor clearance this season. They keep their hands around the throat. They recycle it quickly. It's a quality ball in the box, but it was a team that sensed the moment, and we were very much a team in panic mode because we're in 6s and 7s. Because certain players are missing from the side, and we are going to talk about really poor performances. But you can't get away from that. You just can't.
No. Okay. I'll let you have a quick word on that before we go into the second goal. They talked about the players not feeling it because the board are displaying a particular quality. But I would have thought if you're somebody like Tanner, the players that are left in the team, you think, well, I'm going to show them that I'm worthy of being in this side, and not a fringe player. So surely you step up. Or is it a collective? We've lost 2 of the influential players in the dressing room, and your captain, Knight, he decides, well, I'm not going to be here in 18 months' time, so why should I bother or not play at the levels that are necessary to try and overturn that first goal?
I think there was a collective apathy last night in relation to it. There was an element of the club hasn't demonstrated any ambition. I mean, the four loans the 4 recruitments are all on the bench. We spoke earlier a few weeks ago about the recruitment. The recruitment has to be people that come in, make us a better team. Or if we're selling Viner and we're selling Mehmeti, we know that that's possibly been the situation for the last 6 months. So when you sell Mehmeti, why haven't you got a ready-made replacement?
Well, maybe we have. Maybe we have in that Tommy Horvath.
But that's not a negotiation, is it? Because you're not willing to actually bring that forward by actually paying the money to bring it forward. But then if you know Viner's not going to sell it, the one time realistically that we got it right in recent memory was when we sold Flint. And we sold Flint.
And bought Webster.
And Lee Johnson said, if I will sell Flint as long as we bring Webster in. And we had the ready-made replacement. Other clubs, when they're selling their players, They go straight out. They've got a plan.
But we've got a wonderful
recruitment.
recruitment team. More of that later. Goal number 2, Ant, Brereton Diaz, Clark Maloney. Good strike, poor defensively. I mean, we were gone by then after 15 minutes. It was game over. How did you see that second goal?
Poor defensively. And one thing I say is Derby, again, give credit to them. They were intense. They got the first and they straight away went hunting for the second. They didn't let the pressure ease off. They were hungry. They saw someone who could be got at and they went for it. And I think they had the best away record in the division. They still do. So they're very used to playing away from home. They're very used to playing without the ball. And what they do without the ball is they press you and they wait for the mistake. And I think Dickey or Pring plays the ball tonight, and we're mucking around with the ball back there. We're absolutely mucking around with the ball back there because, as I said at the start, we don't have the progressiveness from the back with those 3 at the back, and we get caught. We get caught in possession. Simple as. The ball comes over, it eventually breaks to Brereton Diaz. Yes, you can argue there's a bit of bad luck because I think it goes through Jason Knight's legs and hits the back of his heel and goes in. But fundamentally, it's when playing out from the back goes wrong, because I have no objection to playing out from the back, but you have to have the right resource and the right setup to be able to do so. And again, this is where we talk about, is there fault for Struber? Even if you play the personnel, you get them to play a certain different way. You know who you're playing against. You're playing against a high-pressing team who like to nick the ball at the top, and you're playing with players who are holding the ball longer for the reasons that we've said. It's always likely to happen.
Captains are the fact is that that's your captain, Knight, giving away the ball like that. That's the guy that sets the standards, and all players make mistakes. But you've just gone 1-0 down. You need to set yourself. You need to find a way back in, and he gives the ball away like that, or he miscontrols it. Put it in the channel first time. Ask questions later. Reset yourself. It's not the moment to do that. I'm not a fan of trying to do that anyway, but I appreciate football teams like to build up in that kind of way. However, in that moment from your captain, you cannot give the ball away the way that Knight did there.
Mm-hmm. No, Tom, third goal, Clark Maloney, Diaz this time provider. I mean, we're wide open.
Yeah, I remember just seeing it almost in slow motion as we just see about 3 of them break away, and it's just Cam Pring, you're left looking up going, it wasn't a set piece. So they broke away, and where is Dickey and Tanner exactly? And it's just like Cam Pring just really couldn't do much. Vitek for me has got to be stronger. He's got to be more commanding. He's got to close that down. He comes and then he stays.
That's the one when he sort of
he stays and it goes through his legs. He's got to come out. He's got to rush him. But for me, I just saw a complete lack of leadership on the pitch yesterday. You know, I was sat in the lower Lansdown and all I heard was Lewis Travis for them. They signed for $3 million from Blackburn, barking the whole time. Their press was completely dictated by him midfield. Did I hear Jason Knight once? No. He did not want to be on that pitch yesterday, Jason Knight. When going got tough, he looked around, he looked at the players' performances, he looked at, did we want it? No. Did McCrory, who usually sets the tempo, is usually the hard hitting. There was a time where the ball wasn't even out of play, and he's kicked the ball off the cone in anger. The ball's not out of play.
Yeah.
Ross, and Knight must be looking around and going, well, what's the point of being leader? We missed Viner. Viner's the leader on that pitch. And then I think we missed someone like Lackey Wells. Go look at that team. Who were the vocal leaders in that team? You know, and usually you go Knight for his performance. I don't think Knight is particularly vocal. Leader,
I don't think Knight has been half the player that he was last season.
No, but that's due to injuries. But also, you must look around and go, well, it's an ambition thing with Knight. Knight obviously will now view himself after 2 good seasons at a certain level, and he must look around on that pitch and go, I am above this. I'm above this level. He wasn't yesterday, don't get me wrong, but he must think I'm above this level. And I think he just gave up, and I think people looked tonight to set the tempo, and he was nowhere to be seen yesterday, and no one stepped up in that shot.
And he's a player who's out of contract in the summer of 27.
Yeah.
And therefore, we should be offering him a contract now. Yeah. And if he doesn't sign it, he should be out the door in the summer.
Well, that's a mistake we made. But, I do not believe for a second what Steve said beforehand about there being no interest in Mehmeti and Viner last window. We know that we rejected a bid for Viner. And if you know Mehmeti's not going to sign a deal, you source him a deal. You go out and you go, okay, is this going to happen? No, we've offered you a contract. I don't believe we'd offered him a contract at that stage. I think we waited until this season so that he can prove to do it again. We didn't take a chance on him. We didn't gamble at all. We were like, prove it again. And by the time he's proven it, he's out the door.
I think the thing is Tom, just to pick up on that point with Mehmeti, he felt unloved by the manager in the final quarter of last season with Manning. And at the podcasters get together with Manning pre-season, he said overtly, the two best players that I've got here are Viner and Manning. We all looked at each other as if, well, they're the two that won. That's on Viner and Mehmeti. And he talked about Mehmeti's fitness and his intelligence. But what they should have done last summer is make him a really, really, really good offer. Yeah. And Mehmeti might have signed. And instead of getting $3.5 million for him, because Mehmeti didn't know he was going to have, and this is the fine balance. Mehmeti didn't feel love the tail end of the season, so his feelings towards City weren't great. Then he had a manager that liked him. We should have been bold with the contract, and if he'd have signed, we might have got $6 million in January.
The issue I have as well, going back to like what you're saying with Mehmeti, is that Struber viewed him as a leader. In that New York Times article, it's Mehmeti he values as a leader. So Struber loves Mehmeti. He's always said that in every press conference. You saw how gutted he was pre-Sheffield Wednesday about his love for Mehmeti. And if you're not providing an adequate replacement, if your solution is someone you identified last summer and you didn't get that over the line and you've waited 3.5 weeks in this window and you're going, well, Mehmeti was in the door last summer. So who is Burzog exactly a replacement for? Is he your he was not supposed to be the Mehmeti replacement. He's turned into it and we brought Bell back. Bell's a new signing, quote unquote. This is a guy that we mentioned earlier before with surplus requirements. We had written him off. We were shipping out to Wickham. We were looking to sell him to get him out the door. And now we're
just to
Dave.
Sorry, I thought I too fast. Just to highlight something on the third goal before you move on, we basically got counter bluffed. Pring goes into the box and leaves us 3-on-3 in the box for if a delivery goes in. But Brereton Diaz knows exactly what he's doing. He holds off and he's waiting for that interception. And the moment they win the ball, he's gone and his hand's up. I'm free. And from there, it's literally two simple passes and we are broken open. We basically didn't, we weren't thinking about defending in that particular moment. The rest defense was completely off. And this comes to the defense and Vitek. If you look at the first time Clark gets the ball, he touches it in the box. Vitek needs to be much more advanced than he is, but it's the whole side that we'd essentially mentally become shot and become headless chickens. And when we speak about there was no leadership, this is what we're talking about. It's 2-0. At 1-0, it was the same. There was no mental reset, get a foot in this game. It was just panic stations everywhere. And it's reflective of losing the players, the people coming in, the mood around the club, the atmosphere. Anybody that heard that interview going into the stadium, for example, you're probably smoldering, because I was. And that affects how you get behind the side. And it's a knock on. And it's everything around yesterday was shown in that third goal. Derby were absolutely on it. We were not.
Neil, you were going to raise a point there?
I was just going to say, before the third goal, they had 2 one-on-ones that they missed. And then Vitek came out, punched the ball, complete flat, and Brereton Diaz had an open goal to head at and put the ball wide.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I was watching it. Oh, they've had 3 attacks and scored 3 goals. They absolutely battered us. As others have said, they went for the jugular last night and they kept going. We got to 2-0 and they kept going and kept going.
Yeah,
kept going at
2-0.
It wasn't like us.
No.
We go 2-0 up, right, let's sit back, let's protect what we have and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
They any player that goes onto the pitch, you can tell within the first 5 or 10 minutes whether the team you're up against want it or not. And they sensed within the first thing, this is a team that is not on it. So we just need to keep going. Pressure comes from the bench. Well, all of those people on the bench pushing them.
Well, I saw they had a whole crowd on the bench, Derby, and when each goal went in, a little crowd in there. I've never seen so many people on the visitors' bench. And quick one, you were watching it on TV. Well, you were as well, Dave. Just between the second and goals, Bell has a goal allowed, and Yeah, because it goes to 2-1. There's hope. Yeah, it's 2-0 at half time.
I think it was a 3-0. That goal was.
Was it 3-0? Right, well,
was
in sequential. Why was that goal disallowed from Ant and Dave? Because you saw it on TV and had the immediate replays, which we don't watch it live.
It was disallowed for offside. Bell starts from an offside position about a yard off, and he comes back. And your question is whether it's twofold, whether intent stroke phase of play. So the ball comes over, Reece gets hold of it, crosses it in, and then it's kicked out and ricochets back off Bell and goes in. So it's not actually a shot from Bell, it hits Bell and bounces back in. I think you can argue by the letter of the law, he was offside in the phase of play when it started. I'm not sure in the intent of the law, it's actually it should be disallowed because he wasn't getting involved in the play. He was walking back, he's onside by the time the ball gets to him and the ball smacked against him. It felt like a harsh disallowed goal. But I would say again, it wasn't really a shot. It was a ricochet back off him. And I think there was absolutely no hope in the way we were playing, even if we'd have got it 3-1, that we'd have made any real difference in that second half. It would have been, I used the phrase, papering over the cracks before. That would have just not even been any paper whatsoever. It's a MacGuffin to talk about it. It was disallowed due to offside. You could see why it was disallowed.
Yeah. Do you concur with that view, Dave?
Yeah. I think Ant really summed it up with the phrase that by the letter of the law, it probably is offside, but it felt a little bit harsh, but I think it's probably just about the right decision. But I don't think necessarily the offside law is designed for that because he's like done a loop, but I don't really have any complaints about the decision, to be honest.
No. Into the second half then, Dave, or at the start of the second half, you saw the teams come out, 2 substitutions, Borges coming on for Sykes, Armstrong for Bell. What do you think of those two? The right selections right at the start of the second half?
No, absolutely not. I felt Bell was our best player in the first half, and the fact that we subbed him baffled me, to be honest. I would have taken Twine off. It's those types of games yesterday when you need people to step up. He's not that guy, and I felt that was Struber's first poor decision yesterday. Really, and you could argue he could have done something more in the first half, but I felt Bell had done enough to deserve to stay on. And in a way, Armstrong coming on within the first minute summed up what he's about. He gets the ball, drives at the opposition, and you're thinking, oh, go on, make something, do something, and then he just miscontrols it. The difference in quality between that and what Derby offered yesterday was summed up in that one move.
Yeah, but that was £2 million spent on Spencer Sinclair Armstrong, and that is the bloody problem. We go out and we buy 2 times 2 million rather than 1 times 5 or 7 million. Tom, what did you think of the substitutions? And let's talk about as well Sinclair Armstrong's performance and that of Emile Reece, or do you excuse them from the crap that was shown because they're up front, they're not getting any support?
No, of course you don't excuse them because they set the press. And Reece completely just looked around and just went, as he has done at points this season.
Yeah.
That was not the first Reece performance that I just saw, because I've seen Reece on it. I go back to Hull at the start of the year at home. That was the first time I saw Reece play live, and I was like, wow, this guy is really aggressive. He's really front-footed. He wants to press. He wants to win the ball back high. Yesterday, he couldn't give an absolute monkeys. It was like his hold-up play was all over the place. He was getting battered by Matt Clark behind him. Sanderson was roughing them both up. And they just were like not up for the physical challenge at all yesterday. I think they looked around and just thought... But for me, Struber was completely reactive yesterday. Why after half an hour, it's not going to work. Make the change then. Bring Morsey on. At 2-0, you're in the game still. Okay, if you bring Morsey on, you recognise the issue in your back three and you go, I'm going to plug this hole, get to half time, and then I can change shape there. But the hole needed to be plugged at half an hour. To then concede the third, game's done. You're going in at half time. You're looking around the changing room. They all know it's done. At 2-0, you get in 1 goal, different dynamic.
Like against Leicester.
Like against Leicester. But you had to plug that gap. And he just stuck with it until half time, crossing his fingers that we get in at 2-0. And then he makes the wrong sub because you're bringing off Sykes, who is a progressive wing back. And, McCrory was on the wrong side, was not good enough, was not up for it. And you're keeping him on. And they must have just been like, what on earth? And then Sinclair Armstrong's coming on for Bell, who was the only attacker willing to take a bit of risk yesterday. He tried to spin Matt Clark. It didn't work. Bell's not at the championship level, but he was putting in the effort yesterday because he wanted to prove why he displaced Earthy in the starting lineup. You take him off, you bring Sinclair on, and you know every single time what Sinclair's going to do. Don't get me wrong, he's improved as a player, but his end product is horrific. And the bar was so low.
That's what I mean.
The bar was so low from what he's improved from.
We're excusing him by saying he's playing well.
But the amount of times, like, he's just slipping over, he's punching the floor, he's not pressing. It was just.
Well, he fell over about 3 times.
Oh,
yesterday.
and the rest. It was just apoplectic.
What did you think on those substitutions and what Ant has said and Dave about changing shape? Because Nigel wasn't afraid to hoik a player off, and the way Pring was playing, or never mind individuals, you could have just changed the shape as Tom said. But what did you think?
I couldn't believe he didn't make any substitutions at 3-0. I mean, at 2-0, I mean, yeah, it was there, wasn't it? It was there to make the change. And you get to half time and you make a defensive substitution. You're 3-0 down. You know, if you're going to make a fet change there, you bring 4 on, don't you? Didn't even use up all our subs last night.
I was just looking at that.
You know, we only made 4 subs. You got Earthy on the bench. You've brought him in.
You've got Joe Williams. I was waiting. I'll be honest. I was waiting for Joe Williams to come on and lamp somebody and get sent off and have another 3-match ban.
Does he really think at 3-0, bringing on a left-sided centre back and Sinclair Armstrong is going to get you back into the game? That's not effective change, is it?
No.
And as others said, Sykes is progressive. At least he's trying to get forward. We're having a little bit of joy down the right-hand side, and Bell was at least trying out there. I didn't understand the subs at half time. 2 pointless.
There we go.
You change it. You do either 3 or 4, and you give it a go. We didn't give it a go.
Yeah, and he made another substitution. It's still 3-0 on 63 minutes. Burzog, the Messiah, coming on for Scott Twine. What are your thoughts on Burzog? You know, I mean, he's come in, he's not come in. He was identified, you know, we finally get him on the eve of the transfer window shutting. He didn't show anything. He looks an athletic guy, but probably no more athletic than 36-year-old this year. And what am I talking about? Naki Wells, yeah? But what did you think of... Let's talk about the substitution, who it was, and then what we saw in the last 30 minutes that Burzog had. What did you think?
I mean, in terms of Burzog, generally, we rolled back. We spoke earlier about Adam Webster, Aidan Flynn. Middlesbrough didn't let him go until they had the replacement in the building. Samiento they brought in, and only at that point did they say they want to let Burzog go. That's how sensible, functioning football clubs work.
And replacing a player with a better player, because Sarmiento is a good player, isn't he? He's better than Burzog.
Debate, discuss. It depends on what kind of setup you want to do, what kind of position you want to do. I mean, I think Burzog, from what I've seen of him, will generally fit a Struber side quite well because he does run hard, does run aggressively, is relatively direct. He's a better player than Sinclair Armstrong, from what I've seen of him in the past. In honesty, on the half an hour, do I think it's the right decision to take Twine off? Yeah. Would I take a Twine off earlier? Yeah. Again, all the things that he doesn't influence games. I saw a comment earlier on the chat that said that Morsey's not very good. I tend to agree from what I've seen so far, but I also think he would have brought him on because you screen that back free. As I said, you try and stop the bleeding before you try and do anything else. And we didn't do the right substitutes last night. I'm not going to judge Burzog on half an hour, because we've all just sat here at a post of Watford game. We thought Sam Morsey was the best thing since sliced bread. So, and you also don't judge a player in a game when he's coming on 3-0 down and the side is absolutely mentally shot. I don't think it's fair or equitable to do so. Do I think he will fit the side in the way that Struber wants to play? Yeah. Do I believe that our recruitment is subpar? The fact that we're hanging all of our hats on a player, as Tom said, who was identified in the summer originally, who we've gone back for 3 times. He can't be the only guy that's out there. And I feel there's a lot of pressure on him, which isn't of his making, because we've gone back for him so many times. This guy needs to be the reincarnation of Pele and George Best to justify the fact of how hard we've gone after him.
Well, I
the best
think
one in
one
the
player
world.
that we courted, the last player that we courted like that I can remember was Eddie Nketiah. Do you remember? That was sort of.
Well, we
you know.
courted Scott Twine like that, and that didn't exactly work out particularly well.
Well, no, I mean, we didn't think we were going to get him. That's why we signed George Earthy on loan, and then Scotty Twine comes in. Let's get on with the goals because the floor is open. If you want to click the QR code that appears at the top, if you're watching us live, we'll try and let you come on and have your words. We're nearly done on the game. Tom, the fourth goal, Aguiman, an energetic performance from him. He cost them £7 million. He looked everything as Sinclair isn't, didn't he?
He just looked like a much better Fally to me. That guy, you could play up top in a 1, you could play up top in a 2. He was athletic, he was powerful, fantastic in the air, and really harangued our centre-backs. And I've not seen Dickie rattled like that, really. But I have seen it this season more often than not. But, we're going back sort of when Reece was up against him last season at Preston at home, a big, powerful forward. Dickie doesn't like it when someone gives it to him. Dickie likes a smaller forward that he can bash about. When you do it back to Dickie, I don't think Dickie and his turning circle, oh my word. He must have just gone, I can bully Cam Pring and physicality. Tanner's nowhere in this game. And Dickie's got the pace of who?
Well, Milt turns quicker. I mean, look at Dickie up against Kiefer Moore in the playoff semi. I mean, he's hopeless against physical players.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think Dickie, for me, he just loses his confidence, and that's him done for the game. He lost it at 20 minutes, and he was horrific for the next 70. And Aguiman, fantastic header, but by God, is Tanner poor for it again. Yeah. I mean, it's just a mismatch in the box. It's lack of responsibility. It's lack of leadership from Dickie. Our most imposing centre-back is mute on the pitch, and it frustrates me so much that he doesn't ever grip the game like Viner did. Viner at least you could hear Viner when you sat in the Lansdown. I don't think I've ever heard Dickie open his mouth. No. And he's not, he just targets Tanner at the back post, and Vitek there's not much he can do, but he just reluctantly sort of puts his hands up and just admits that it's gone in, really.
Yeah. Dave, the defensively, the goal, the challenge, who is it? Tanner's not even there with a challenge. I mean, he's just sort of, Aguiman hangs in the air almost for the goal and heads it in. Do you think Vitek could have done better with that one? We said he was a bit hesitant for either the second or third, but
I think the fourth one, his positioning, I believe the fourth one is the one when he kind of kicks it away poorly, and we keep being punished for the way that we're clearing our lines because we're just not doing it. But in terms of the cross, no, I don't necessarily think that he can come for that one. But I think it's stuff that has been spoken about many times. Players know that if a cross is coming in, peel off to Tanner. And when you come up against strikers that possess that kind of height and strength, he was bullied. And you never want to see any of your centre-backs bullied in that way. And unfortunately, with Viner, McNally, Atkinson out, we are playing two like that. And for him, he must have been licking his lips yesterday. Sometimes it will work, but every time you come up against those types of players that are good in the air, you get punished. From a striker's point of view, it's a fantastic goal. But you don't want to see one of your defenders bullied like that, because every other team will now watch that and go, guys, that's what you do.
Yeah, he was furious when he came off the sub yesterday. At Eustace, Aguiman. When he came off yesterday, he was absolutely furious at Eustace for taking him off. He had a 30-minute chat, and Eustace was he turned around laughing, because I imagine he must have just gone, why on earth have you bought me off? I could have got another 2 or 3 there.
Well, they were going for it then. And Neil, it could have been 5 not long after, because there was that one where they were literally, our defence, they weren't even there. They weren't even statues. I mean, the goal that didn't happen because Dickie got in a lucky deflection. Take us through that as you saw, because the openness beggared belief, didn't it, of our defence there?
Just on the fourth goal, though, as well. The apathy defensively, was it? Vitek kicks it out. Oh, he'd had enough yesterday. He could tell. There was a collective across. Nobody yesterday in the City side was like, this is rubbish. I don't care anymore. That was the feeling they had. That's why so many people left.
Yeah.
That's why so many people left, because they were looking
permeated onto the terraces.
They were looking at the game and like, this team doesn't care about this, so we're not going to care. So streams out, thousands left. But that cross comes in, Tanner, Vitek watches the ball just go past him. What's the header? He doesn't even try saves. It's like, oh, that's stupid. It was like watching junior football where there's just one team in it and the other team, and you're just like, come on, guys, come on. You have to at least show that you're trying. And that's why 4-0, thousands more stringed out. People that I've known for 30 years at City that do not leave, left at 65
And they
minutes.
probably all heard the Lansdown interview as well. And what did you think of that effort of theirs that deserved a goal? And as I say, Dickie got a foot in onto the post.
Look, it's symptomatic, it's emblematic of the way we played. I mean, I'd almost rather not focus on that and focus on the overall general piece here. And the thematic is a fundamental lack of leadership. Dickie, gets something like, but rolling back to what we were saying earlier about Rob Dickie, if you remember when he was at QPR, he had one season where he was superb, smacking in goals from 30 yards. He fell off a cliff. He absolutely fell off a cliff at QPR. And you're seeing the signs of him falling off a cliff here because he is a confidence player. His confidence is completely shot. He's playing because we've got no other fit defenders. You know, you're never going to... McNally, there are rumours that he's done completely now. Viner's going, Atkinson's injury prone. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but why haven't you got another centre-half in the building? If you know that Zach Viner's likely to leave Wrexham, we're on about to sign this New Zealand guy. Get him in the building. You know, get him in the building because there's cause and effect going on here. We've got, and I really like the look of Adjumane, by the way. I thought he was excellent. And that was it. I love that goal from a striker's perspective, the fourth one, because he gets himself up and he's winning that ball. Yes, it's George Tanner, he bullies him, but you can see his eyes light up. And I watched Derby last week at West Brom and he was very much the same. He's frustrated when he's not on that pitch. He's a really, really good player. And yes, he's a better Faleamulu. I'm a better Faleamulu. It's a low bar when we go through that. But I was really impressed with him. But in terms of that chance, we got away with one. Add it to the list, Brereton Diaz one. You know, Andy Vyman had an effort which narrowly went over when he came on. You know, this isn't the case that we're talking and saying, oh, actually, we got away with one on there. That's okay. We lost 5-0, not 6-0.
We could have, in reality, last night, it could have been 6 or 7.
I think the concerning thing as well is that back three we've all given new deals to in the last 6 months, 8 months. Because
they know that's their level. They're
so comfortable at that level. George Tanner, comfortable mid-table championship player. Cam Pring, comfortable mid-table championship player. Rob Dickie, comfortable mid-table championship player. So the players that you need to get new deals on, your Viners, your Mametis, we can't agree. But these comfortable players, I'm sure we'll have no issue giving Bell a new 3-year deal.
Oh, and it'll be heralded as a new signing.
Mameti shows some ambition. We can't agree a new deal.
All right.
The worrying thing for me with Pring is since he's come back from his injury, because this isn't the Cam Pring that I remember watching. Notwithstanding the position last night, I think he's better on left back, left wing back. But you're talking a guy whose strength is he's burgeoning. He's an athlete up back, strong, not getting pushed off the ball.
Yeah.
You know, Cam Pring since back from injury is not the Cam Pring of 20, 24, 25 or 23, 24. No. It's worrying.
Yeah. No, Cam Pring's come back from injury and he's not, and I think that's why he signed, because Cam Pring is not the player that was attracting Premier League interest based on his 2 performances against West Ham in the Cup when we scored that goal up at the London Stadium with it. Was it Tommy Conroy, I think?
Tommy Conroy.
Our owner called him Tommy Conroy, if you've listened to the interview. I wondered who Tommy Conroy was. Dave, final goal. Vyman, round of applause. Very nice, Bristol City. We applauded Barry Bannon and then Vyman comes on. He gets an applause. He looked like he'd eaten a few burgers, I thought, because those shorts are a bit tight when he waddled onto the pitch. But he sets up the 5th goal. And that sums it up, doesn't it? And fair play to 2,000 Derby fans who made it down in that shambles that was the M5 yesterday. But the goal summed it up.
Multiple crosses, multiple recycles. Wyman came on desperate for a goal. He had an arrived smile when he shot over the top. By that point, we'd mentally gone. Derby were chasing. Derby were almost in goal difference mode, understanding that every goal could count at the end of the season. They very much at that point are forward thinking. They're not job done. Take your foot off the gas. It's every goal might matter in the future. And we were just mentally shot by that point. And just being like that means you lose your 4 or 5%. Another goal comes. I was very despondent by that point. My head had pretty much gone by that point. It was just like, well, this is fun to watch. But yeah, 5-0 home game Friday night. Looking forward to it all week, and well, it wasn't so fun.
Sets you up nicely for the weekend, doesn't it? Well, as we said, that if you do want to contribute, because we're coming on to the equally interesting part, we spent a bit longer on the game than perhaps we should have done. The equally interesting part, it was heralded as our owner speaks. I think, who was it doing the interview with him? Was it Ed Hadwin or?
It was Hoskins, I think.
Hoskins did the interview. I think we've all heard the interview. I want to play it back again. And I think we should take snippets and use that as a basis for a midweek special in the week of the window shut, because we know where we are. We could even call it our end of season review. Yes, a bit earlier than last year. But the Lansdown interview. Let's come to each of you with your thoughts, and then we can pick up.
Should we bring the
individual points?
Allow somebody to come in.
Well, somebody can come in if they're there, but there's no.
They were there, but they came too early. At the moment, there's no one waiting. If someone does come, I'll add them. If someone comes, so now's the time. If anybody wants to join.
All right. So each of you just have your words on the Lansdown interview, and then we'll break down some of the bits. You first, Dave. You first. Your thoughts on the Lansdown interview.
He came across as someone that's not used to hearing criticism, almost surrounds himself by yes men and can't handle it when people go things against him. His words against Struber were condescending at times, and that's the good part of the interview. You know, one of the phrases that stuck out to me when he was defending himself, he said, they can buy what they like. They can buy Bristol City Football Club on its own, they can buy Ashton Gate Stadium on its own, or they can buy them together. There are no restrictions. And that's from your, commander-in-chief basically saying, take the stadium, I don't mind, do what you want with it. It's not the best, And then when they're talking about sack the board, he basically accuses people of potentially ruining the football club. What kind of ego have you got to have? You might disagree with it, but at least ask yourself why there is such despondency. It was a poor interview from a man on the defensive that cannot take criticism. Okay.
Anne, your thoughts, and fair play to Hoskins, because I thought his interview, he started off a little bit slow, but he was coming in. He had Lansdown. I thought he had Lansdown on the ropes by the end of the interview.
He did. I think it's really important to work out why Steve Lansdown did that interview, because Steve Lansdown is not a man who puts himself forward to media scrutiny. He didn't put that forward to talk about anything around the club. Didn't put that forward to want to talk about transfer dealings. Didn't talk about recruitment. He put himself forward for that interview because he was butthurt from the criticism. That was it. I am going out there and I'm going to tell you, look, how great I am, how lucky all you people are to have me running this football club. Could be worse. You could have Wael Al-Khali. You could have Chantry. You've got me. I'm Steve Lansdown. I'm brilliant. And it didn't matter what he said about the rest of it. There could be merits in some parts of it. I mean, it was horrific. We're a buying club. We're not a selling club. Really? Or we're a spending club, I think the phrase was. Brian Tinian does great recruitment. Our recruitment is second to none. Really? But all of that fades into supporters can ruin a club, which was basically Steve Lansdown sitting there and saying, unless you come in and you kiss my feet and you say I walk on water, I will just make this worse for you because you said sack the board. I'm really not happy with you. You want rid of me. I'm just going to stay here. I'm going to ruin this for you because he's a child. He's a juvenile. And he needs to get out of the football club now. He's done a lot for the club, no doubt, in terms of the stadium. Has he moved us on the pitch? Not massively. We talk about Derby in the position they were in. They've moved on. They've progressed. They're spending money. We're sat there and we're having to have the head coach justify, look, lads, this is why we're selling our players, but we're not bringing anyone else in, and just show him a picture of Steve Lansdown and you sit in that stand that you named after yourself. It's a monument to your ego. It's not a monument to Bristol City FC. It's time for him to move on without a shadow of doubt.
Yeah, no, I mean, he said the thing, somebody commented on the text feed here, I pay the checks, and again, if you look at it relatively, what Bristol City costs him a year, I think is about 0.04% of his income. And if you look at what the average fan spends on following the football club, who's a season ticket holder, watches them away, relatively, we spend as much. We're not as rich as he is, but a lot of people probably spend more of their income watching Bristol City than he does. Tom, your thoughts of the interview? We were sat in the car listening to it. It was embarrassing or cringeworthy.
It was only this morning that I really reflected upon it, and I've got so many issues. And I think my first one will be in terms of recruitment, and he heralds this recruitment team and then uses the analogy of 3 academy players that he's recruited in Tommy Conway, who left 2 years ago, Scott, who left 3 years ago, and Semenyo, who left 3.5 years ago. So you're saying that in the last 2 years, there's no one there. And this is a guy, if you've got any prospective owner listening to that interview who you want to hear some ambition, he couldn't name one sellable asset. Our most sellable asset walked out the door for 3.5 million because you couldn't agree a contract with him a week ago.
And the next one's Knight.
Okay, you got Knight, and you're looking at it, he's going the academy, we're not playing academy players. We haven't for the last 2 years because the academy has not been good enough. The talent pool, you've got this massive talent pool, but yet none of them seem to be able to make the step. Everyone that's made the step has been under 18 straight into first team. That 21s, they just get lost. They go elsewhere. They go into the non-league game. We find it possible to ship them out. Ephraim Yeboah, where is he? Not good enough. Okay, then you're talking about the money that he puts in. He treats Bristol City like a business enterprise, and football business is completely different. You are not in football to make money. You're doing it from a place of passion, and you need to show some ambition. He's going, you need to be careful what you wish for. I wish for an owner with a bit of ambition that doesn't charge interest to the club every season and go, why are you not praising me? Why are you not doing this?
It's a blatant lie when he says, I am not taking any money out of the club. And there's a 2.5 million interest bill that is going to Pula or whoever.
He might have got recruitment right in the last couple of seasons potentially, but then the person that he entrusts the most in Brian Tinnion, who handles the contracts, has got a bad reputation within the world of football because of how he handles these contract situations. Matty James got done by him. Naki Wells publicly outed Tinnion when he left and said, I got promised this, and Brian Tinnion took it away from me. Matty James wrecked his knee playing through pain because Tinnion had promised him a contract. That's why he couldn't sign for Wrexham until the December, because he was fighting for this injury. Tommy Conway left. He can't handle agents. Danny Coles, he went into the squad and said, I'm not going to be able, you're going to have to find a different agent apart from Danny Coles because I can't work with him. And it's like, this is your guy that has been in so many different positions. You've entrusted him and you'll defend him. He sat there on live air yesterday, going, him and Struber have meetings about how we play. If you think for a minute, Gerhard Struber turns around to Brian Tinley and goes, how do you think we played today, Brian? I want to hear your views on this. Pearson couldn't work with him, and that's a guy that's got so much experience in football. Manning, I think, just accepted it and then left at his first opportunity. There's no way that Struber will hang about for this. And, he's there and he's going, about Tom Rawcliffe, our new CEO. Starts condescending him, going, shouldn't have spoken about that. And then, luckily, Hoskins goes, oh, well, it was on Turkey Al-Rashid's Twitter. I'm sure Steve Lansdown didn't even have a clue about that. He was going to put the first blame on Rawcliffe for that. Yeah. And he's sat there just mindlessly defending Tinnion because that is his system.
Well said. No, Tom, everything you said, you let it all out there, man. You let it all out. Tom's dad, Neil, what did you say? Or is your last say for you?
Well, no.
I can't disagree with anything.
He just came across as everybody else is wrong and I'm right about it. And I think on a basis, how you can say, right, what's your objective? What's the plan, Steve? Well, the plan is to get into the Premiership. Well, it hasn't been a Premiership for 20 years.
It's the bloody Premier League. If he can't even get that bit right.
It's a Premiership in row. So he starts getting flustered. He's feeling that he has to defend himself. But in those situations, there has to be some humility, doesn't there? You have to admit that after 24 years of actually being it, if your objective is to get into the Premier League, then you failed, haven't you? You failed as a business. If you set the business objectives to get into the Premier League and you don't achieve it, then you don't achieve it. There's no point going on about how wonderful the recruitment is if the recruitment doesn't get you to what your objective is. So one way or another, going this recycling of players and saying, our recruitment's wonderful. How can a recruitment be wonderful when you're losing 20+ million a year and standing still, when you're not moving forward at all? What people are looking for now is, what is the plan, Steve? you know, who is accountable for the fact that we are going through every season, Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day, Groundhog Day, allied to the fact, you know, Einstein's theory of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So unless you actually change the way that we plan each season, and that revolves around the personnel behind the scenes. I'm sorry, if we're talking about recruitment for what? Recruitment to bring players in to then sell them on as a business model. Well, that's a second-hand car dealer approach, isn't it? That's not actually going to take you forward. And as Tom said, with regards to, these are academy players that have come through. And we've been lucky. But if you look back at when Joe Bryan left, when Bobby Reed left, when Brownhill left, those players, we tried to get them signed contract, but they just cited a lack of ambition. Players are looking at us and saying, if I'm going to sign a new contract, you have to demonstrate what's the ambition of the club.
Well, they don't want to take the risk.
And then
they don't want to take the risk.
Ultimately, for me, Bristol City is now seen in the world of football as a stepping stone club into the Premier League, because we bring you in either as an academy player or we recruit you. There's no expectation you sign a new deal and commit your future to us, because you know if you play well, there you go. We've got the precedent. You can go off now for $3.5 million to a team that will likely get promoted, Nanis Mehmeti, who was by far our best player. You know, for me, you just look at it. Who have we bought in that we've turned a profit on that's played well? The last one I can think of is Adam Webster. You know,
Josh Brownhill's the only other one.
Josh Brownhill, but again, we were forced to sell him because he refused to sign a deal.
6 or 7, 8
and
years ago.
That also, you know, if you look at it, we bring players in, we keep them, they play well, they get a move on the cheap. The only players we have ever got real money on has been the academy players that have kicked on that then we've sold on. You know, we are so reliant on our academy, and yet our academy staff are not good enough. The integration team is not good enough. The loan system that we use is not good enough. You know, Jamie Knight-Labelle, Canadian full international, got 3 appearances for them. Where is he? Where is Jamie Knight-Labelle? And, you know, if he's not good enough, why is he still at the club? Why is he still at the club at 20 years of age?
Dave, let me have a word. Let Dave have a word here. Dave, one of the other comments he said, we're a spending club, and then when challenged on where the money for Mehmeti and the Semenyo profit had gone, he said it's like this: wage costs, I think he said 32 million, loss 18 million, transfer profit 14 million. And then when he says what football, he's often said what the football club spends, what the football club makes, the football club can speak. He said everything is spent on the football club. No, everything is spent on an overhead base that is out of kilter with the likes of Hull, Millwall, Preston and Derby, because they don't get 42 million quid's worth of turnover and still make an 18 million loss. Dave, your thoughts on that comment that we are a spending club? What did you think of that?
Well, we aren't. You can't have it both ways. We often hear like, oh, we have an 18 million deficit to make up. We're not going at it in the same way other clubs are. We're trying to do it on the cheap and then acting surprised when we get results like yesterday. And I've not been an anti-Lansdown person. Generally, my frustration with him has been the decisions below him, the people that he puts in charge, and the fact that we lack experience with contacts to get business done. And it shows again and again. Yesterday was the interview where he lost me, because he came out and he chose violence. He didn't show any respect for everybody. Oh,
that's just us two now.
Okay, that's what I say. Makes people disappear. Yeah, welcome back. But yes, he woke up, he chose violence. He basically decided, I'm going to show these fans just who's boss right now. And we're a spending club. I mean, how many people looked at that and laughed? Because I did. It was, are you kidding me? Are you serious? We're watching everyone around us progress and try and grow, and we're trying to do it on the cheap through the back door. And if we look at just who we got Earthy, who we already knew about, bit of an unknown entity. We don't really know what his ceiling is. He shows bits of promise, but that was to replace Stokes. That wasn't to progress anything. We brought in Morsi, a reasonable acquisition for this period. You know, well done for bringing him in, but he's not the going forward answer. And then we bring in Bergzorg, who rejected us 3 times. And if you did that with your boyfriend or girlfriend, they'd be like, guys, it's time to let it go. The fact is, he should have been brought in on the 3rd of January. So to say we're a spending club, we're not. We had limited ideas, and when those ideas were off the table, we had no additional ideas. If you're a spending club, Take a look at a few of Derby's forwards yesterday and the money they spent. When was the last time we spent 7 million on a forward that overpowers Tanner at the back post? We're not doing that. Just because you spend that money doesn't necessarily mean that they're guaranteed to be successful. But at least those clubs are choosing their sword to die on. We're basically not even bringing a sword. So please don't give me the nonsense that we're a buying club.
And the talk is, he spoke a lot about people he's spoken to and potential investors, and some they like and some they don't like. But the fundamental fact of the matter is that he won't sell. Sorry, he is unable to sell because he has a totally unrealistic view of what it's worth, what he's created. Because we have got a lovely ground and a training centre, but lots of other clubs have got that as well. Yeah. But he's asking too much, even if you break it down, and people aren't going to invest for minority shares in it. If you look at what they've done with the women's club, totally different financial model, but they've got 80% ownership, and they're showing ambition, the Mercury 13, because they've gone out and bought players from a higher level that are going to get them into the top flight in women's football, of which, as we all know, Bristol City, that 1 year they were at the top when they didn't invest. They did not invest in the women's team in that year they were at the top. We had the best, or Bristol City women had the 5th best attendances in women's European football. And that's why Mercury 13 stepped in. But he's living in cloud cuckoo land, I think, and he doesn't say what he wants, but that's the issue. Whichever way you look at it, that's the issue.
There's a few reasons. I mean, and again, if you were looking to buy us, I know he said everything's for sale. We can hive this off. We can hive that off. You've got to do an extrication of Bristol Sport. If you want to buy the football club in the stadium, great. But bear in mind, you've got the Bears there for fixtures. You've got the women there for fixtures. You've got this. You've got that. You know, yeah, it's revenue. How's that revenue then split up? And you're going for it. Are we building a sporting quarter? Are we not building a sporting quarter? You know, there's a load of stuff, and that's even before the fact that he probably wants to keep his idiot son and his moron Geordie in place afterwards as well. So, you know, you look at what you're buying, and what am I buying here? Before I even start thinking of price, what am I buying, and what are the conditions? We only want to sell to the right person. The right person is the one who's got the money to buy it. Once you sell it, Steve, it's not your concern anymore. You don't care enough about it to start with, so just get on and sell the thing. But in terms of the price, I've heard 200 million mooted, and you compare that to, for example, West Brom, who I believe went for 60 million. Now, West Brom have more history than us, more track record. They've been in the Premier League. They're a bigger club generally. I would argue the potential of Bristol City in terms of catchment area, in terms of being able to be established, is bigger than West Brom. But it's not 3 times bigger in terms of the price. It absolutely isn't. And on that basis, you know, it is a fundamentally overvalued proposition. So, yes, he needs to get the price right. But if I'm sat on Turkey Al Sheikh or whoever is coming in, I want to know what I'm buying. And to be honest, most people who buy a football club, they don't want to buy the Bears, they don't want to buy the Flyers, they don't want to buy a sporting quarter. They want to buy a football club. Yeah. Be clear about what you're selling. It's the club and the ground. Everything else can go to pot.
Yeah, Neil, it was an interesting point there because he was challenged, I think, on the Bristol Sport model. And people don't want the Bristol Sport model, which prompted is, would he break it all up? But, you know, as Ant has very well said there, you know, it's a complex web, right? And it's too interlinked, isn't it? Because he talked about having a data room. Yeah, we got a data room with all the financial information there for everybody to look at. But you can sit there and pore over the figures. But if he says, I want 200 million quid for everything, lock, stock and barrel, and you're comparing it with a West Brom because none of the other bits are profitable. Yeah, we're in a doom loop. I used this phrase a couple of times since the turn of the year. We're in a doom loop at the moment, aren't we?
We're not a distressed sale.
Correct.
When it comes to actually, you know, investors coming in, they're looking to invest to actually get their money, and they're looking at distressed clubs that are openly wanting to sell. Listening to that again last night just reaffirmed for me, he doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want to sell. He wants to, in his mind, the best thing would be for somebody else to come in and pick up and invest. I want another investor to come on, but I don't want to sell. If I'm going to sell,
I'm not going to give you control.
Well,
Yeah.
You've got to keep my son as chairman and Brian Tinian as head of recruitment.
If you're talking about you've had the club up for sale for 5 years and you haven't had somebody that meets not only your financial sort of thing, but your ethical standards. I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? So not only do they have to meet your financial stuff, but also they have to be your type of people that you really want to do. That's just the get out clause at every opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to actually sell a house or you really want to sell a business, then you can sell it.
You tweak the price.
If there was determination, but in terms of, you might not sell to the person that you think mirrors you, but then in the same way you think perhaps they are better, but that requires a bit of humility. And there's no humility from him at the moment. There's no like, we spent 26 years trying to achieve something. We haven't achieved it. Maybe my way isn't the
Maybe
best
it's time
way.
to look at yourself. Dave, let me ask Dave a comment, and I'll same one to you, Tom. Dave, one of the other things he said on there, which was bloody ludicrous, somebody just put it up on the text feed, it's dropped off now, is that Bristol's a bit of a backwater. My arse, it is. You know, I mean, why are players going up to Newcastle and all these? Okay, Newcastle's got a good nightlife, yeah, and certain clubs in Park Street, well, they benefit from the nightlife that City players bring
what he meant by that, and he could have perhaps phrased it better, but to defend him slightly, what he meant is that it's very difficult, as an example, to get Premier League sides to loan their players here because they generally don't want to. Tammy Abraham, for example, it was a very difficult sell. He didn't want to come. The club were reluctant. You think about Skinner and how we approached with him. We had him at Western because we wanted him in-house training. When he went out to Eastleigh, he hated coming and going. That was why we recalled him, because he hated that part of it. And we felt it was better to train him in-house. Premier League clubs have the same philosophy. So there are some aspects where it can be challenging to get players to come here. But at the same time, it's like, well, that's a you problem. You know, you've got to make them, you've got to sell it, you've got to make them buy in. And if you're looking at the football club and you're seeing that Anis is out the door, Viner's out the door, players that have contract, it's not really being a backwater that's the problem. It's your lack of investment. And that's really how I see it, to be honest.
Tom?
I think for me, the issue, going back to what Dad said, is that Steve Lansdown's got this ego that he's never failed at anything in life. And I think now he's just holding on, you know, because he's such a successful businessman, he's not used to the sense of failure and his way not working. And he's trying to get us promoted his way, which was the way to do it 25 years ago when he first invested in the club and first took it over. It's not the way you get promoted to the Premier League now. And it's like Steve sat there and going, we are doing it incrementally. We're doing it my way. We're doing it sustainably. We're doing it this. We're doing it that, you know, but it's not going to work. Our model of how we lose 20 million hand over fist on operating costs every year. It's not going to work. You need to show some ambition, and he has not got the ambition for it. But his ego is saying to him, it will happen eventually. So I'm going to sit here and it will happen eventually. And eventually I'll turn a profit and I'll be able to turn around to all the City fans and go, look, I built you a stadium and we've done it my way. I was right all along. It's not going to happen, Steve. You are not going to get promoted this way. And it's not feasible. So him sitting there on the radio yesterday, every comment was a defensive one about how he owns the club. There was no progressive thinking. There was no new ideas. It was him defending his model that he's been using for 25 years and him going, this is why I'm right. And it's, if you're an investor in the club, that is the most uninspiring talk you could have possibly had. I'm going to do it my way. So if you're a minority investor, you've still got to stick to my way. So the way he wants to invest, he doesn't want to have new ideas. He just wants more money.
He wants somebody else's money with him to have control.
Exactly.
Minority
he wants to do it.
That's not going to work. I mean, interesting. Look, Matt Seward, he's in this band. Maybe he's saying it tongue in cheek. In fact, Dave's just put it up on the text feed. Matt Seward, clueless, lads. I'm assuming he's meaning us. Be careful what you wish for. Bollocks. Brentford, Bournemouth, and Brighton. Sorry, I wish for some. Just a little tiny piece, even if it was only 2 seasons like Cardiff have had under the evil man that's Vincent Tan. I'm bloody 70 in 6 weeks' time. I would like to see one bloody season in the Premier League.
David, it's... Sorry, Neil, go ahead.
Hey, go on, Dave.
I'm going to... Sorry. When it comes to be careful what you wish for, what do you want from your football club? You want them to feel like they're pushing in the direction of a dream. You know, some people sing about 12th place again and whatever, but you want to feel like it's possible. And this season especially, I feel like for the first time in a long time, probably in my lifetime, we have a truly elite football manager who, first of all, is not being given the tools to do the job. Second of all, they're pulling some of the tools away, and we're being asked to be careful what we wish for. I want a football club and everybody in it to chase that dream. Okay, don't be unbelievably irresponsible and like, make the club go bankrupt, but do it properly. And hand on heart, right now, the board level, are they doing that? For me, the answer is no. And you only have to look at our transfer movement and how we approach things. Is it ineptitude? Is it inexperience? Because someone asked me, how do we let all these contracts just roll down? As Tom so beautifully put, how do we make money on players? Most of the time, it's because the academy players step up. We lack experience. We lack the people to do the job. And Steve Lansdown surrounds himself with yes men. And as soon as he's challenged, he calls it cringe. Or to paraphrase him yesterday, when Struber asked me why, I explained it to him. Not the best of impressions you want to make. Basically, putting the man back in his box. It is poor, poor, and poor. Rant over.
Talk Sport yesterday, they had the interview, and we were talking about it over Dolman first half before I came and sat with. They were on there, and
Talk Sport, yeah, it was a game, wasn't it?
Yeah, the game was on. Darren Bent was asked about it, and he said, Bristol City in 7th, can you see them going up? And he started laughing. He said, everybody in football is waiting for Bristol City to press the accelerator. They get themselves in positions, and is now the time where they're actually going to go on? Is it going to? And then it's like, no, it's not. Now, with inside the football field, I think we're a bit of a joke. I really do, because I think players, it must be so difficult to convince any loanee now coming in to that situation. Do they think we're going to get promoted? Where's the ambition? Are we going for it? Are we not going for it? There is, within the world of football, agents know us as a bit of a joke. Other managers can't look at us and think, we've got a billionaire owner. Why can we not be contesting on the way?
Yeah.
We are ridiculed, I would say, with inside the world of football.
I don't think we have a good reputation, and maybe that would change. I don't know. I really don't know. Guys, look, it's been a bit longer than normal, and we could go on for a fair bit longer. I think, guys, do you think it's a good idea to dissect that Lansdown interview and have a review midweek of where we are with everything? Dave and Ant in particular?
I think post-transfer window, because after last night, there's two competing things happening. One, something needs to change and players need to come in. But two, having heard the veritable Mr. Lansdown, nothing is going to change and players aren't going to come in. So we could be either talking on a slightly celebratory mode and saying, oh, look, we've got bodies through the door, we are having a go. We're more likely going to be dissecting, when the hell is this going to move on in the end? But yeah, it's always a good idea.
I think we'll do that. And just you got a quick word from you, Dave, because I know
just to say on my part, we did actually have 3 or 4 people request to join today, and it just takes a little bit of fine tuning on from my part going forward, because the problem is they all requested in the beginning of the podcast. So generally speaking, if people want to join in future, because I'm going to keep adding it for the second half of the show once we're post game for people to come on and speak, but it's just a small thing because there was some interest today.
Yeah, we had somebody right from the start, didn't we? Okay, guys, look, it's not going to get any easier. I mean, Hull City away next week, that's going to be tough. And then it's then the Cup against Port Vale away, and then the mighty Wrexham coming to Ashton Gate on the 17th
with newly recruited Zach Viner.
He's probably going to be. He's going to be injured. Zach Viner's going to be injured, I'm sure, when he comes back, or is part of the deal that he doesn't play against us on the 17th. But I think it's fairly certain we might come back and do a special in the middle of the week, just to really break down that. It's all about having the time to do it. Just break down the Lansdown interview with little snippets, play them out, and give our comments on the snippets, in addition to this somewhat thrown together attempt at dissecting it today. But everybody who's listened live, hope you've enjoyed it as much as we've enjoyed doing it. Similarly, if you're listening on the podcast platforms later in the week, it's not a happy day, just not a happy club at the moment. And it is fine margins because, if we'd have won, we'd have put the Lansdown interview to one side and we'd have been sat there in the top 6. Okay, maybe only until tea time today, but we're not. And we could well tumble down a few more places in the league. But everybody, thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and enjoy your week. Goodbye.
Cheers.